As you know, on Wednesday afternoons, we talk to Shane Beamer, associate head coach, running backs coach at Virginia Tech. The Coach's Corner Chat brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Coach, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for asking.
Worn out from the election festivities last night? Just stay up too late?
I did. I stayed up watching that, and then, it was last night was like a Thursday night for us as far as game week goes. So that's the night where the one night that we're not up here till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So that's also my night to catch up on shows that I've TiVo'd. So I was up late catching up on shows and watching election stuff.
Yeah, it was crazy last night. Did you catch the Maction, too? Did you ever catch any Tuesday night Maction?
I did. Last night was the first time. Normally we're working, and by the time I get home, I go straight to bed. But I did watched about the last 5 minutes of that when my wife was mad at me. She wanted to watch nothing but the election stuff, but I had to bounce around a little bit just to keep things fresh.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's certainly the case. Hey, I want to ask you about some high school football before we get into the meat of this stuff. And I had someone ask me, how often does the coaching staff, in particular the guys that are hot on the recruiting trail, how often do they make it out to games locally, in Southern and Southwest Virginia? And my only answer to that question was, I would guess only typically, when they're targeting a kid. Does that sound about right?
Pretty much. The way recruiting is, the month of May is when we get out on the road as coaches, and we get in every high school in the state of Virginia. We're in at least once throughout the calendar year. And the month of May, that entire month is a recruiting period for 4 straight weeks. During those 4 weeks, we get out to every high school in the state and then quite a few out of state as well. And then during the season, what it breaks down to is generally you get about 6 days where you can be out on the road recruiting all of your coaches. So we were out recruiting the day before the Pittsburgh game, the Bowling Green game, the Cincinnati game, the North Carolina game, the Duke game. There were about 5 straight Fridays where we were out on the road recruiting. Every coach has an area. So I was in either Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or Richmond, for about 5 straight Fridays. And whoever has the local schools, which for us is kind of Cornell Brown and Mike O'Kane, kind of split that up. They get out to games, but typically during the season, it's the ones you go see at least play or pretty much guys that are prospects, guys that you're either recruiting that year or trying to get evaluation on for the future.
Talking to Shane Beamer, associate head coach, Virginia Tech, here on the Phillips Real Estate Hotline. All right, Coach, last Thursday night, Miami on the road, national television, didn't go the way you hoped. You scored 12 on Miami, none in the second half. What'd you take away from the game, and how are you feeling directly after?
Miserable was how I was feeling directly after, and extremely disappointing. We coming off an off week. Our guys played hard. In all 3 phases thought we had a great plan put together on how we wanted to attack them, and still feel that way. I feel like a broken record, but it just gets down to execution, and for whatever reason we didn't execute. And we got off to a good start. The first drive went right down the field, and then turned the ball over. We bobble. We have a wide snap, then we bobble the punt snap, and we get a punt block. We give up a long kickoff return. I mean, just so many things that aren't Virginia Tech like we did early in the game down there in Miami, which was disappointing. And then just to have some yards, but to only score 12 points is extremely frustrating and disappointing. Nobody hurts more than our players and coaches, but we got a resilient bunch, and they were right back in here again on Saturday morning last week when we watched the video with them at 6:45 a.m. and then Saturday afternoon at practice, and ever since then, they've been good. But disappointing down in Miami. I know we let a lot of people down, no more so than ourselves.
I've got to ask, and I'm not trying to pile on here. It's just an honest question because I'm looking at the offense and I'm thinking, okay, maybe if you struggle, that's one thing. But to also turn the ball over and to give up field position to Miami's offense, even dating back to Clemson, does that put extra pressure on you? And I know pressure is one of those weird words that I hate to use, but how much worse does that make it? Knowing, well, we didn't just perform badly, we kind of put the defense in bad spots too.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, we're a team, and to sit there and watch the defense, and I know Bud said it. They gave up some, long plays and some explosive plays, that weren't like them. But for them to have so many 3 and outs for the entire game, for Miami to be 1 of 12 or whatever it was on third down, and for us to not be able to, number one, capitalize on the way they were playing in the second half. Number 2, we had some great kickoff returns that gave us some field position and not be able to capitalize on those. And then, like you said, to put the defense in some bad positions, whether it be a block punt, whether it be a kickoff return, whether it be a interception, a failed fourth down conversion, it hurts to begin with, just from a football standpoint. But then when you put your defense out there in a bad situation, it's even harder. But really, what it gets down to is protecting the football, and the turnover ratio or turnover battle right now with us is pretty simple. When we win it, we win the game. When we lose it, we lose the game. And we've got to protect the football better and be able to run the football better. And it's a lot of different things. But no question, last Thursday in Miami was a frustrating night. And not to keep rambling, but I know a lot of people wanted to talk about Miami's defense and how they weren't very good and what they were ranked and all that. I think that's a bunch of garbage. I mean, I understand where people are coming from. They had a young defense that gave up some points earlier in the year to Kansas State and Notre Dame. There's no question about it. But I said it last week, and I still feel that way. The same North Carolina team that scored 48 on us struggled to score 18 against them. And the same thing with Florida State, the team that's rolling in here tomorrow. I know they put up some points there in the end, but it was a struggle for them to move the ball against them as well. They're getting better on defense every week, and that was a good defense we played last week. So, wherever they were ranked in rushing yardage, passing yardage, and all that, that was a good defense. Now, having said that, we got to worry about ourselves and our performance, regardless of what they're ranked or not ranked. We should have been better than what we were Thursday. There's no question about it.
Since you and I've started this segment, doing this week to week, I get more and more questions for you each week, just flowing in, email, Twitter, folks wanting to say.
I can imagine.
Yeah, can you?
When you're 4-5, that tends to happen, I guess.
Well, I wouldn't attribute it all to that. I mean, people just like hearing your segment, and the questions keep coming in. But the one I got over and over and over again this week was kind of a combination question. It was, J.C. Coleman, why only 5 touches against Miami, and what happened to the running back rotation getting pared down?
Well, the same people that are sending those questions into you must be the same ones that are sending me emails and things like that, because I'm getting the same ones. Well, number one, I look back at, I'll start back at the Bowling Green game. You look back at that when Tony Gregory had a great game. J.C. Coleman did some nice things. Really felt like at that point, Tony and J.C. really gave us something. Well, Tony got hurt that game. So we go up to Cincinnati, he doesn't play. We go down to North Carolina, Tony doesn't play. And then with the Duke and Clemson game, I said it last week, Tony and J.C. were the ones that got the majority of the reps. So I really felt like going into last week we had pared it down. Mike Holmes had been practicing really well. And the thing, what happened at Miami is really 2 things. Number one, J.C. started the game. We were in empty on the first play. J.C. was lined up as a receiver. And then our game plan against Miami was to run the quarterback. Not that we weren't going to give the ball to J.C. and Michael and Tony, but we were going to run Logan Thomas. Notre Dame has had some success with that. Kansas State with Colin Klein had some success with that. A lot of teams have had some success running the quarterback, and we're one of them. I mean, we do a good job of running our quarterback. Mm-hmm. And Logan ran for 120-some yards or whatever it was, so we were successful. Well, if you're doing that, when you're running the quarterback, that doesn't mean your tailback takes the play off and he just stands out there and watches Logan run. If you're running your quarterback and you've got design runs called, that tailback has to block a 240-pound linebacker. And J.C.'s shown that he can do that, but I wasn't going to ask J.C. Coleman to, line up and run the ball or come up in there and take on a 240-pound linebacker, 10 times on Thursday night. So we had some packaged plays where, when we come to the line of scrimmage, more often than not, we haven't just called a play and we're going to run it. We do that some, but a lot of the times we get up to the line of scrimmage and Logan has 2, sometimes 3 plays that he could call. And when we got up to the line of scrimmage, or when a play call came in Thursday night, or if it was the beginning of a series and we felt like, hey, we need to run Logan some this series, we kind of tended to lean towards getting Michael Holmes in the game a little bit, just because he's the biggest tailback that we got. And sometimes Logan ended up running it. Sometimes he didn't. And then the other thing is it was a warm night in South Florida, and we played 82 plays. Mm-hmm. And I think the most, our running backs we've been averaging as an offense around 65, 70, somewhere in there. So we played a lot of plays. I wanted to keep them fresh. I hear the concerns. I totally agree. It's hard to play 3. I realize that, but our plan is still to run to play 2 tailbacks, and 2 tailbacks primarily, and that's our plan. Thursday night was just a little bit of a game plan we had some personnel packages in the game where we were going to run Logan and wanted Mike in there to be a little bit of a blocker for us, and we played a lot of plays. Now, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but we that was our thinking going into it, and right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what ended up happening.
Hey, we appreciate the answer. Two quick things, because we got to touch on Florida State before we let you go, but I want to talk about a comment earlier this week. Marcus Davis effectively told Mark Giannotto of the Washington Post that he feels like this team is devoid of leadership, and he referenced some guys on teams past. Do you feel like that's fair, and do you see leaders emerging on this team?
I do. I can't speak for Marcus and what he sees, but I think we've got we've got good leadership in the fact that our guys, after every game, they come in here the next day or the 2 days after, whenever it is, and they're ready to practice and they're ready to get better and try and win a game, and they're fun to be around. If we didn't have any leadership, I think it would be easy for this whole thing to get divided and things like that. But I don't see that. Now, every team that I've ever been on, I mean, there's going to be a player, or not a player, but a part here, a part there that you got to continue to always monitor and keep an eye on and things like that. And that's anywhere that I've ever been. And 2012 Virginia Tech is no different. But I see leadership. Now, we don't have a lot of seniors, and when you don't have a lot of seniors, you're not going to have as strong a leadership as if you have a bunch of seniors. And last year we had a bunch of seniors, particularly on offense. I mean, Jarrett Boykins here today walking up and down the halls with Eddie Whitley. I mean, those two guys were great leaders for us last year. Danny Cole, Chris Drager, all those offensive linemen. I mean, we had a bunch of leaders on offense last year, and this year we just don't have as many seniors. We made Logan Thomas a captain for the Miami game, a junior, which we haven't done before, because we've got some guys that they're leaders. It's important to them, and what I've told the running backs and anybody that I've talked to, I mean, just because you're not a senior doesn't mean you can't be a leader. I mean, there's guys on this team that are freshmen that our players respect, and don't be sitting around feeling like it's not your place or something like that, because if you're a leader, you're a leader, and our guys on the team know who they respect and things like that, and who they listen to. And so to answer your question, I don't know exactly where Marcus is coming from. I can't speak for him, but just from seeing it on the practice field on a day-in, day-out basis, I think we've got the good guys on this team and the right leaders in the majority of the right spots.
All right, before we let you go, Florida State comes tomorrow night. I've been excited for this game all year. Can't wait to get out to the stadium. But at this point, we look at this team. We see a team averaging a lot of points per game. But you could make the argument those numbers are inflated. I know you don't want to hear it, but I think you can make the argument. On the other side, defensively, according to collegefootballstats.com, this is your top-rated defense in the country in total defense. What do you expect tomorrow night?
Well, collegefootballstats.com is 100% right. They're the best defense we've played in my 2 years here, and it's not even close for second place. They're good, really, really good. Their defensive line, I mean, they can rush the passer. They're deep. I mean, the number one player in the country last year was Mario Edwards Jr. Out of Texas, and he barely sees the field. And he's the number one, I think he was the top defensive lineman, if not the top recruit in the country last year. They're active, they're physical, they're fast on their front four. They're linebackers. Coach Foster made the comment to me last week before we went down to Miami, because he was getting ready for Miami, so he was watching Florida State's defense all week versus Miami's offense, and made the comment that he thought the guys that were playing linebacker were safeties the way they run, and then he looked at their depth chart and realized they were all linebackers, and then I see exactly what he means now that I've been watching them all week. They're big, they're physical, and they can run. Watch them on the opening kickoff. I mean, basically their starting defense is basically their kickoff team, and they fly downfield. And then in the secondary, they're talented. They're physical, and they just, smother receivers. Clemson hit some big plays on them, but if you watch the video of that game, I mean, Florida State's defensive backs, they physically beat the heck out of Clemson's wide receivers all night long physically. So we've got a big challenge on offense tomorrow, and then I've seen them on their offense as well. They've got a great offensive line. Quarterback's playing well for them, and they can run the football. So they're extremely confident coming in here, and our guys are excited. There's something special about a Thursday night in Blacksburg, particularly with a top 10 team coming in here. So our guys will play hard. I have no doubt about that.
Coach, we appreciate your time, man. Look forward to it every week, and we'll do it next week again.